doesn't understand it. He doesn't get that. We need your voices. We need to come together. We need everybody to all unite to be on the same team. Who here don't feel data? What happened to pneumonia cases? You guys know where they went? Because they fell off the charts. Let me educate everyone that's here and tell you exactly the minimum requirements for a COVID case. The minimum requirements are this. If you cough, if you have COVID, if you have difficulty breathing, if you have COVID, if you have shortness of breath, guess what? You have COVID. Here's another one. You might not know. If you travel to an active COVID area, if your phone picks you up and you travel through there, you are classified as having COVID. Okay? So we need better data. We need better information on how research is done on COVID. They're pumping numbers through because it's an economic gain for the hospital. That's what it is. It's the truth. It's not the truth. That's why we're here today.
We're here because of that place. Somebody paid the price before we got here.
Amen.
Free Americans.
Yeah!
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Best practices, work with our business community, and of course we're making progress, right?
No.
Not according to the news.
No.
Yeah, there's progress that's never going to come back or recover from this.
Everyone going together.
No, we're not pulling together. We're against each other right now, Adam. Because you guys are misinformed. Yeah, one-sided.
In a legal meeting Friday.
Let's hear it out.
Then why are you doing it? Why are you ignoring that?
If what means...
Put the county board out here.
If 50% of our ICU beds or surgical beds are filled with COVID patients, this is what came. We hope it never happens.
Then have a meeting at that time.
That's not the ordinance.
Them are filled. They see that as a tipping point to them possibly being overrun, like we've seen in New York and other.
So they have to go to a hospital, go to another hospital.
If that happens, that is what we would want our public health officers.
No. No.
Social distancing or steps. Second.
Wait. You got to hear what he got to say, then you can rebuttal it. We don't agree.
Put in order. Nobody based on the hospital being overrun a significant concern, which again, we all hope never happens.
We haven't had it happen yet.
Hope that never happens, but if it does, right, the ordinance puts in legislative oversight for the County Board Executive Committee and Health and Human Services Committee would have to approve that. Right now,
Not the way it's written.
Not the way it's written.
Not the
It's
way
a rubber stamp. It's a rubber stamp.
the benefit of having the Executive and Health and Human Services Committee overseeing that is it allows for public input and it's another entity.
No.
Then write it that way.
And number 3 is the enforcement provision. We don't want our police officers and deputies spending time enforcing masks.
We don't want business owners enforcing it either.
They're busy enough.
No.
But we want our
No!
They softened the state law.
Not true.
Jail, which no one's going to go to jail.
Not true. I have it from Crystal. I have it from the attorney. Not true. I don't believe it.
Do your fine, There's only 3 people in the hospital.
I'm ready for a party.
That violates these can be subject to a $10,000 fine and up to 9 months imprisonment. It goes on and states that a local health officer may employ as many persons necessary to execute his or her orders. These persons shall be sworn in as quarantine guards, shall have police powers, and may use all means necessary to enforce these laws and orders. To me, this is martial law. I used to trust my government officials for the most part, but not anymore, especially in light of this so-called pandemic. I've done a fair amount of research in this so-called pandemic, and I do not believe the narrative. I refer to it as a pandemic and a hoax. There's a lot of solid information out there which leads me to believe this. I also do not trust the reporting of the COVID testing, such as with the number of cases and the number of deaths. There's a great deal of information stating that these numbers are being falsified to advance the agenda. In addition, I believe that people and institutions are being paid large amounts of money for helping contribute to this lie. Another question is, how long have you all known about this ordinance and the implementation of it? There was training that occurred yesterday already. If this ordinance was only being put in for possible future use in the event of a surge, why did Health and Human Services feel the need to call a special session last Friday to introduce it? It would seem that people know that there will be a surge, and how does anybody know this, I ask? I call it problem solution. They come up with the problem, they come up with the solution. I believe this one has been hidden purposely from the public until the last minute in hopes that no one would say anything. As elected and employed county officials, I request that you each take a good look at what these documents are saying. Can you see what this is leading to? Would you wish for your family, friends, and loved ones to be subjected to this? Our forefathers and citizens of our country have fought hard for the freedoms we have here, and now some people want to take that away. There's one piece of truth we can stand on. We must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, and we will receive whatever we deserve for the good or evil we have done on this earth. A yes vote places this on your conscience. I ask you all to vote no to this ordinance.
Next is Jonathan Hesketh. Hesketh. Good evening. Thank you for including me on tonight's agenda to speak. My name is Jonathan Hesketh. I'm a resident at 224 2nd Street, Sheboygan Falls. I am concerned about the proposed ordinance number 3 that is being introduced to the board tonight. My concern is that this ordinance seemingly gives unlimited authority to impose and enforce penalties for non-compliance to public health orders as determined by the county health officer. The county health officer is an unelected individual and therefore is not accountable to the citizens of Sheboygan County. The language in this ordinance is broad and vague, and nowhere does it specify that it is only for COVID-19. The language in the ordinance states, quote, COVID-19 and other communicable diseases, end quote. This language indicates this could include all communicable diseases, for example, the common cold, air influenza, and so on. This kind of vague and open-ended governance is unacceptable. It leaves the citizens of Sheboygan County vulnerable to this abuse of power. This ordinance ignores due process and government accountability. This ordinance will force business owners to question patrons if they have medical exemptions to health orders. It would encourage prejudice and suspicion among fellow citizens. My concern is justified in that this ordinance is being introduced now when the supposed curve has been flattened and there is no health crisis in Sheboygan County. None of the county's hospitals are overrun with COVID-19 cases. It has been suggested that this ordinance is necessary in the event there would be a sudden surge in infections. As of Monday, August 17th, the number of active cases in Sheboygan County was 105, which is approximately 0.09% of the county population. 7 of these cases are hospitalized, which is 6.6% of the active cases. Currently, the rate of hospitalized infection in Sheboygan County is 0.006%. As of Monday, August 17th, there have been 887 confirmed cases in Sheboygan County since March 13th. That is approximately 0.75% of the population that has been confirmed infected. As of 2 p.m. on Monday, August 17th, the hospital capacity in Sheboygan County is 24 available ICU and surgical beds, with 9 currently occupied with COVID-19 related patients. It is unreasonable to think that we would have an overwhelming surge of infections in Sheboygan County when the amount of hospitalizations has been in consistent decline in Wisconsin. Where is the evidence that there will be a sudden surge of cases and that those cases will require ICU treatment? Trends from the health department's own data shows no such evidence. If this board is convinced there is a need for an ordinance to control the spread of COVID-19, why is the language of the ordinance not specific that it is for only COVID-19? Why draft it with such broad and open-ended language? The low amount of cases in Sheboygan County is no justification for the permanent forfeiture of individual liberties, and this ordinance violates the sacred freedom of the individual controlling one's health and well-being. Members of the board, I ask all of you to protect the individual liberties of the citizens of Sheboygan County by voting no on County Ordinance number 3. Thank you.
Stephanie Arndt.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stephanie Arndt. I live at 535 Community in Sheboygan. I was in attendance at the last county board meeting in July for the first time. As the meeting began, we kind of discussed it. The group that came, we were blasted by all virtue signaling about mask wearing, how those in the room that cared were wearing masks, that those who were taking responsibility were wearing masks and just doing as they're told. And so who is telling us to do this? Experts, public health officials, the government. So the same experts that came out with models that were so far off, but we're supposed to keep trusting them. The same experts that say that we're supposed to do things that are not healthy for our immune systems, like staying indoors, wearing a cloth over your face that catches the bacteria that your body is actually expelling, and then breathing that back in by staying far away from people as far as possible, disconnecting from those around us. It's like watching robots in the store. It's quite sad to see. Did you know that the #1 cause of death in the country, or the number 3, I'm sorry, is medical error, mistakes by experts. And I'm just going to share a story with you that I've only shared with like 5 people in my life, and now it's my Fox News. About 13 years ago, I actually worked for the Department of Health doing vision and hearing screenings, and I was guilted very strongly into getting a Tdap vaccine in order to protect the kids that I would be working with. So that I wouldn't unknowingly spread something to them that I may or may not know that I have. Does that sound familiar? I was not informed of any risks associated with the vaccine, and following this vaccine, I had a miscarriage. This vaccine is not tested on pregnant women. None of them actually are. But it is pushed on them. And why did I take this? Because a health department nurse, a medical professional, told me that I needed to. Now I take responsibility for my decision. I hadn't done the research that I have done now. But we are being told through this whole ordeal to just listen to the experts. People who have been wrong over and over again. Now I know this ordinance doesn't contain the word vaccine. You all stay safe. Mask up. But it does say other things. Mask up. Actually, Suzanne had out 251.06 uses words reasonable and necessary. Who defines these terms? 252.03 says upon the appearance of any communicable disease, the officer shall take all measures necessary. 252.6 says that the officer can employ guards, put in place for quarantine. The quarantine guards shall be sworn in and have police powers. The officer, if it deems necessary, shall remove a person. Do you know that person means child? I was just in contact with someone who's been threatened with having their child removed because she was sick. 252.25 says you can be in prison for more than 30 days or fined for not more than $500. The DHS 145 says that you would have to participate in a treatment. So what have we heard over and over and over again is the treatment, or the only way that we're going to get back to normal for this. It starts with a V, if you didn't know. And let's see, an officer can direct you to go undergo exams and tests, desist from employment, be placed in an institutional treatment facility. All of these are very concerning.
You have 1 minute.
So the thing that is troubling to me, and I have questions about, is the oversight. You have the HHS committee, which is 6 people that are on this board. Then it comes to this board, which is 25 you board members. Then it's going to go to an executive committee, which is 5 of the same board members, and then it comes back to here to be voted on. I have a lot of questions on the oversight of this and how this is going to be put into place. I do not give consent to any governing body or health department to have any control over my health and that of my family. Because of the guidelines of the HHS and the DPI, my children will not be enrolled in schools, and I'm not going to force them to be taking place in any of this new normal, because it's not normal. Medicine is not one size fits all. A mandate cannot be one size fits all. A mandate shouldn't even be put in place unless there's solid evidence backing it. Let's see. And I am kind of upset with the rules that were put into place last time that have limited this room to only 10 people of the public. We asked for transparency, and this is a public meeting, so we all, as the public, would like to be able to attend this. And I think that's all for now. Thank you.
John Ranieri.
6th Street in Sheboygan. I want to thank the board for this opportunity to speak today regarding the proposed ordinance number 3. I, as well as others of members of the community, have several concerns about the proposal as it is written, as well as some broader issues inherent to individual freedoms and societal responsibilities. In Section 1, I have several concerns and questions. In subsection A, it basically states that upon the appearance of any communicable disease, the health officer will investigate all circumstances and make a full report to the board and the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. Do you mean any communicable diseases, such as a cold, flu, or a rash, just as some possible examples? Are there going to be spot checks, or will citizens call or have a business investigated? How will the official determine what the disease is and what actions need to be taken because of it? Will the business be closed until verification of the disease is determined? Will the business be compensated for its lost revenue if the closure was deemed unnecessary? For the next few months, seasonal allergies, which is not a communicable disease, is going to affect a large percentage of our population. The symptoms of seasonal allergies are very similar to many communicable diseases: sneezing, runny nose, coughing, and even low-grade fevers. In Section 5, authority is given to forbid public gatherings when deemed necessary to control outbreaks or epidemics. Does this not only apply to churches and businesses, but also protests that are currently taking place in many areas of the state? In Section 6, any business violating a public health order may be subject to administrative action, any licenses it possesses in the county. What exactly does this mean? Permanent or temporary suspension? What are the criteria for the suspension? How does it impact the community or city license renewal process? Does one supersede the other? How would the length of the temporary suspension be determined? Will the number of offenses enter into the determination of suspension or discipline? What happens to the citizen after the fourth infraction? Before I conclude my concerns, I want to make a personal statement to the board. A question we must all ask ourselves is, when do we give up personal freedom for the betterment of society as a whole? In some cases, the answer is simple and straightforward. In other cases, such as this, it is not. Religious freedom, moral beliefs, and personal freedom all come into play. The best example I have is the immunization laws of our state. All children are required to be immunized against childhood diseases, which are deadly to many of them. However, we allow parents to opt out of their child receiving them for religious or moral reasons. When the vaccines against COVID-19 become available, will we require all the people to receive it, or can we opt out? It seems as if fear is driving our decisions. We do not seem to be taking our time and making sound decisions. The quick fix seems to be the answer without thinking them through or the consequences of their actions. Our great president, Franklin Roosevelt, said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." This ordinance is being driven by the media and political mania. I applaud you for thinking of ways to protect the great citizens and tourists in Sheboygan County. Please take time to consider your actions and their consequences. Thank you.
Next is Kristi Reitz.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristi Reitz. I live at 228 2nd Street in Sheboygan Falls. I also own Sunshine Yoga Sheboygan at 1517 South 12th Street. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak tonight. In February of 2019, I started my own business, a yoga studio in Sheboygan. With Governor Everett's stay-at-home order, I was forced to temporarily close my business. On May 26, 2020, my bank account for my business was at $2.67. This was my balance without paying any rent for April and May, thanks to the graciousness of my landlord, who also did not collect rent for his other two fitness tenants. $2.67 was all that was keeping me from a zero balance. When I was able to operate again, after careful examination of the recommended guidelines, I went to work writing cleaning procedures and policies that would keep my clients and employees safe. Our current motto at the studio is practice safely, practice responsibly, and practice with physical distance. Words matter. We practice with physical distance. We have not and will not stop socializing. I have worked hard over the past year and a half to build relationships with my clients, between our teachers and among our community. I have built trust within my yoga studio. As a business owner, this is how we survive. If our clients, patrons, customers, patients, or employees don't trust us, our business will fail. Period. Trust is built over a long period of time, but the destruction of trust takes seconds. The proposed Sheboygan County Ordinance Number 3 is government overreach. Many others have addressed opposition to this ordinance from a personal stance. I want to make sure to bring up the business owner's perspective. Many of my yoga clients come to Sunshine Yoga to escape the harsh realities of their daily lives. Some suffer trauma, anxiety, PTSD, and other mental health impairments, all of which are reasonable exemptions, as identified in Governor Everett's Emergency Order Number 1. Until the proposed ordinance number 6, subsection B, states, any business in which an individual is violating a public health order shall ask the individual to leave the premises. Businesses or organizations may rely on an individual's statements if they claim to be exempt from the health order for the reasons permitted. Tasking Sunshine Yoga or any other business to betray that trust as a business that a business has built by asking if or why a client has an exception from the mask mandate would be inappropriate and not conducive to maintaining trust. Have you considered what this will look like for implementation? What are you asking? What you're asking would require me, the business owner, to literally spend every hour of every day that my business is open at the front door. We, the business owner, can't possibly expect to place this type of responsibility with our licenses at stake in an employee's hands, because as a business owner, we could lose everything. Have you considered what this will do to the small business community? You are also asking business owners to determine exemption without defining what is, quote, reason permitted, unquote. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. The Americans with Disabilities Act and other civil rights protect people from needing to explain their exemption. I'll give you an example. I'm now standing at the door waiting for yoga clients to arrive instead of upstairs spending time communicating and building community with my clients. A woman walks in without a mask. A woman who I've known and become friends with. A woman who supports my business. I now need to ask her why she's not wearing a mask. She's a survivor of domestic abuse. Her ex-husband used to hold his hand to her mouth to dominate over her. Is this really the type of disclosure that's necessary?
You have 1 minute.
Is this really what you want me to ask patrons? Then, if I ask my patron and they tell me something and I deem it appropriate, what happens if you don't? Then I lose my right to run a business. Can't I operate within the current guidelines of Governor Ever's emergency order, where I'm to assume that if someone is not wearing a mask, that they have a reasonable exemption? You might say that that's an extreme example, and you're right, it is extreme. But in the world we live in my small community of clients, I can't afford to lose one. To craft and initially approve such a controversial and critical ordinance to be introduced to the full county board, I would assume a lot of time was needed. An ordinance of this magnitude surely would have necessitated deep reflection, critical thinking, and discussion. Yet, in less than 36 minutes, this ordinance was approved by the HHS committee last Friday. The meeting was called to order at 8:03 and adjourned at 8:39. 36 minutes. It took me a lot longer than 36 minutes to write what I'm reading for you tonight. To close, I'd like to ask each one of you to dig deeply and to ask questions and to seek advice and consider what you're asking business owners to do. Thank you.
Dan Jones, W7748, County Highway W, Cascade. I tried to stay out of politics for a while and concentrate on my family, spend time raising my children, loving my wife, instead of battling hopeless partisan political fights, but here I am. Facts first. On Thursday, August 13th, the county administrator, according to the minutes, called for a special meeting of the Health and Human Services Committee on Friday. On Friday, the administrator, who was unelected, proposed an ordinance written by the Wisconsin Counties Association to the committee, and it was unanimously passed. So our county government is pushing an ordinance that is written by an unelected member, an unelected person that is not a member of the board, and it is written by someone who's not even in our county. I know government has strayed far from what it is supposed to do, but maybe if we want unelected people pushing legislation that is not written in our county, we should disband our county government and hire some Madison public relations company to run our county. The older members will remember when supervisors did a little more work and they didn't rely on an administrator to herd them in the wrong direction. Facts. The administrator has been saying this ordinance just sums up, streamlines, and softens the state ordinance 252 and other. If that were true, they would word it so people could understand it and draw that conclusion for themselves. They also say that it is not about forced vaccinations or radical things like that. Like forced vaccinations is some laughable conspiracy theory. Let me remind you, last Christmas when you were celebrating, a mask mandate was a laughable conspiracy theory. Facts. State statute 252 says that during a state of emergency, a public health authority can order any individual to receive a vaccination unless that vaccination is likely to lead to serious harm or unless the individual, for reasons of religion or conscience, refuses to obtain the vaccination. The public health authority can isolate or quarantine any individual who is unable or unwilling to receive a vaccination. The department shall promulgate rules that specify circumstances, if any, under which the vaccination may not be performed on an individual. So the statute says an individual can deny a vaccination based on religion or conscience, but then it says the department has the ability to determine if your conscience or your religion is a valid reason. They've been saying that this is an old statute meant for polio and things like that, and it will never be implemented. What is also a fact is that no matter what side of the political aisle you are on, you see government agencies and courts misinterpreting or injecting new meaning into old laws and regulations all the time. So what will happen in the future? They say the welfare of humanity is always the alibi of tyrants. Of course, COVID and communicable diseases are real and precautions need to be taken. But you know what else is real? Governments and politicians that take advantage of situations for their own personal gain. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on in, Republicans look and see that there's welfare fraud, unaccountable budgets throughout agencies, unions that control governments. Democrats say that there's fraud, protectionism in police departments, unaccountable military budgets, and big businesses that control government. So how come now we turn a blind eye and follow the government's lead on COVID and whatever else is next? Could big business be in on this as well? Ignorance is your only excuse for at least not thinking about this and entertaining the thought. Yes, COVID is real. People will die and people will get sick. You know what else is real? Medications that were tested and found to be safe, now causing profound problems. Foods that were tested and deemed to be safe, now causing diabetes and heart disease. Antiperspirants that cause cancer. FDA-approved birth controls that cause side effects in women and birth defects in children. Toyota didn't mean to create a minivan with an airbag that starts on fire and kills people, but that was an unintended consequence. So what are the unintended consequences of wearing a mask and lowering our oxygen levels? For every action, there's an equal or greater reaction. I'm not worried about myself or adults, but have they ever took children and lowered their blood oxygen level by 5 or 10% for 7 hours a day to see their adverse effects of their growing brain? I would bet if this was done, it would be considered child abuse. And who will be responsible 10 years from now if there are adverse effects that are realized? I will not risk this on my first grader. Yes, COVID is real, but you know what else is real? The fact that viruses live longer on surfaces than they do in the air. So sit in the parking lot or in this room and observe people's mask wearing skills. See how many times they touch it and adjust it before going into the store. Try to guess if that person has ever washed that cloth that is filled with spit, bacteria, and potentially COVID. And then think of all the things in the store that they're touching. Think of your waiter in a nice restaurant that goes into the bathroom. How does he touch that mask? What might he get transmitted to the mask and then back to his hands and to your plate? You don't treat think of your own practices. Don't put yourself on a high horse. Do you wash your mask? Do you treat your mask with much respect? Do you touch your face because it's getting uncomfortable? And then transfer whatever is on your face to your hands? And then to everything you touch during your everyday life, spreading germs? It's easy to go along with something that's popular opinion, especially when the media is squashing any counter-science. A man who does not think for himself does not think at all.
Thank you, Dan. Dr. Toby Watson.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Toby Watson.
You're welcome, Toby.
Lakewood Court in Culver, Wisconsin. I was born and raised here. My wife and I have 31 years. I have a vested interest in obviously keeping all of you safe, as well as my own family. And I have once prepared a 5-page thing to talk about, but after listening to the other speakers, I've decided to abandon it because I think it covers a lot of the same information that they're telling you. So maybe I can tell you something that they don't talk about. We talk about assimilation and accommodation. All of you, for the most part, have made up your mind which way you're probably going to go with this already. We do that as human beings, and psychologists, I can tell you that humans tend to do that pretty quickly. Unless something radically changes your mind to sway you to a different, your political ideology, whether you're Republican or Democrat, it's going to be about the same. This has become very politicized. We've recognized that this virus has become politicized between the two different parties. If you tend to be more Republican, you tend to support the idea of having more freedoms. That reason alone, for those who are Democrat, no, you say that they're bad, that they're not wearing it. You don't care about people, maybe. I care greatly about people. I donate most of my time seeing patients. I've done that for over 15 years. What I've recognized is that our history has been plagued throughout time, for thousands of years. Power will corrupt. There's no question about it. Politicians come into office and they mean well and they do well, except for the fact that then they start to sell their soul. Power will corrupt, no matter who you are. It's biblical. In my field, for you that don't know, Nazi Germany came about. You can say, oh God, not another Nazi story. But you know where that actually started? The psychiatrists actually came up with it. American psychiatrists actually. We used to determine determine, based on people's ideology, who would be maybe feeble-minded or mentally ill or not. And it was political. If you had a certain political party that you didn't like, I could diagnose an institution. It's happening in Russia as well, communist Russia. What we don't realize is that when we give power to somebody, and this latitude of power, where they can say to you, I think that you need to take a vaccine, because I believe that as a doctor. If I'm a health officer, I can treat that under this ordinance and mandate it and force you to do it. But yet, if I'm a doctor and I don't agree with that, where's my freedom? Where's my choice? Americans fought for that freedom. They died for it. My father was a Marine, is a Marine. We fought for that freedom. So really
I like that.
And I get the idea of saying that, hey, well, what if me not knowing could infect somebody else? I understand that idea. We still have that freedom. If I am concerned and worried, then I need to take precautions for myself. And maybe quarantine yourself, isolate, or maybe get a real mass action. It's just interesting that some of the other people talk about their masks. If you look at the box, all the masks that you're wearing, they say right on it, it doesn't stop coronaviruses. It doesn't. It's like trying to stop a fart smell through your genes. And that is actually a true statement. COVID-19 is extremely small, and it passes through those masks that you're wearing. That which you're wearing stops large spittle. People that have large spittle don't worry about large spittle. That's why the CDC, the World Health Organization, the WHO, all said don't wear masks. And then all of a sudden something changed, where they said, no, you have to do it now. Well, what changed? There wasn't new research. I've done it. There's no research out there that says that it's stopping it. It was a political change that they wanted to have people start wearing masks. And maybe there's some precaution from it. A large spill doesn't end up on whippers and things like that, if you're actively symptomatic.
Yeah, 1 minute.
But that's not what we're trying. That's not what they're asking for. We're looking for obedience. That you follow, and that you listen. And now this is a way for them to create a law or an ordinance that mandates it. I've never taken a flu shot. I never will. Again, under this ordinance proposed, it would say that, hey, Toby, that's not okay. We're going to force you to do this thing. And we're going to have a serious problem. We're going to have a revolution within our own country of people who value that freedom and have fought for it, and the people who say, no, you have to do what we want. And heaven forbid if that health official becomes a little more corrupt, a little more politicized, a little bit power hungry, because you will all be vulnerable. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. It depends on who's in power at that time. I really, really pray that you all do not allow this to continue or even put it to committee. Thank you.
Next is Justin Webb.
Hi, I'm Justin Webb. I'm the producer of Road. I'm the owner of Sun Graphics Media, Brands and Graphics, Game On, Event Cards, and Cinematic Properties in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I employ 50 people plus, and that may not seem like a lot of people, but those people are my family. I care about them deeply, and I am responsible for taking care of them in many ways. Today, I want to share with you a story. It's a story of a child whose earliest childhood memory is that of his father beating his mother unconscious while she lay on the living room floor. It's a story of a child who was so poor in rural Arkansas that he and his brother were forced to burn their food in their living room while their drunken-ass father raised them on call. I made a promise to myself that day. I made a promise that I would never make my family live like that. That boy, that mother eventually left. That boy was adopted by a great father. He met a wonderful woman, raised a great family, and moved to the community that he loves. That boy took it to the church. He started businesses. He put everything on the line so that other people can enjoy their jobs. He took a risk knowing that if his business fails, that boy would be just as poor as he was when he was a child. He would have failed his family, he would have failed himself, and he would have failed his employees. That was me. The But my story, while it may be unique, is not different from any other business owner that is sitting out there protesting, that is calling you and emailing you. They have put it all on the line. You don't get the freedom of saying, oh, we'll just get a paycheck. If we have customers that leave, if we are forced to
legislative oversight, the ordinance also includes an enforcement component that is easier to administer and less punitive, again, if needed. You were also quoted to say the proposed ordinance was drafted by our corporation counsel with the input of public health professionals, Chairman Pope and others, who were further quoted in a clarification piece to WHBL Monday morning. Well, the ordinance being brought before the board for review essentially softens the state statutes in place for communicable disease, end quote. I could be misinformed, but to my knowledge, no one on this board has a medical degree. Furthermore, it is my experience, having lost my job, that this board has not upheld Wisconsin state laws. We are bombarded with wordplay, and the people are given if to soften the blow, when in reality it is or. Take a COVID-19 test, or you'll be terminated. Put a mask on, or you'll be fired. Excuse me. In less than an hour, I was denied my civil rights. And I stand before you unemployed after 80 years of community service to my county and over 13 years as a licensed practical nurse. I have no reason to believe that this board has our best interest in mind. You want these proposals to pass, but you don't think that Wisconsin laws apply to you. I was told by corporation that corporation counsel would get back to me about being denied my civil rights. I never got a response. Perhaps the council would like to address the taxpayers of the county as to the reason why a nurse of over 8 years in good standing with no complaints on file from residents or family members would be denied employment. For upholding precautionary measures no different than the ones utilized by the board today. Whether or not the county chooses to acknowledge it, I am a phenomenal nurse, and I take much pride in having served the public in the capacity for not only as a nurse, but as one of 2 minority nurses that I know employed at Rocky Hill for the past 8 years. Not only do I oppose this proposal, this ordinance 3, I request that the board uphold state laws that are currently in place. Because all men and women are created equal in the eyes of God and in the laws of the United States. Respectfully, a little background on myself. My family came here to Wisconsin in 1976. I am the youngest of 7 children. My family of 9 was on complete state assistance up until I graduated from nursing school in 2007. I thought that was going to be the last time I would have to ask for any assistance. I'm on week 9. I've almost exhausted every penny that I've saved. But you want me to trust you? Are you putting food on my table? I asked nothing for 13 years. I'm asking for you to take that into consideration and remember my face. And remember how hard I worked for years, nonstop, during the summers, getting through school, to get my license, so that I could be torn away because of my beliefs. You don't have that authority. You don't.
My name is Pat Schutt. I live at 4624 Amanda Lane in Sheboygan. After the state Supreme Court overturned the Evers administration's stay-at-home order in mid-May, several counties attempted passing ordinances to create new powers and expand the existing powers of their public health officers. Many of these efforts were formed by citizens who rightly saw their tyrannical nature. Most of these ordinances were based on Chapter 252 of the state statutes. Per several state senators, including Dewey Strobel, these statutes are antiquated and poorly written and need to be corrected by the legislature. There were rumors that Governor Evers' Department of Health Services was behind this county-level initiative, and rumors that the Wisconsin Counties Association was also involved in this. Of course, the Wisconsin Counties Association claimed they were in no way involved. I find it very disturbing that a special meeting of Sheboygan County Health and Human Services Committee was called one day prior to the WCA issuing its guidance, and that more than several county board members were caught unaware and could not attend the special meeting. What was the urgency in the county administrator scheduling this meeting for late in the day on a Friday afternoon? I believe you can all draw your own conclusions. This guidance claims not to be a template or model, yet that is exactly what it is, and the results are in your hands. It empowers unelected bureaucrats and administrators with even more power over the citizens in their county. I feel this is simply un-American and wrong. I refer to Section 1009(3)(a). The Sheboygan County Health Officer upon appearance of any communicable disease in Sheboygan County will immediately investigate all circumstances. Issue number 1, is the Sheboygan County Health Officer an elected or an appointed position? Do we have yet another unelected bureaucrat unanswerable to those over whom they have been given broad powers in this ordinance? Directing us with no ballot box in mediation? Issue 2, the words appearance of any. What does appearance mean? Not actual diagnosis? Appearance is a very broad and nebulous term, giving wide attitude with interpretation. This is all in the ordinance proposal. Any communicable disease. Code is obvious. Does this also include seasonal flu, SARS, MERS, STDs, the common cold? If STDs occur in children, what assurances of parental rights are there? As written, the ordinance requires parents to report to the county in the event their child gets an STD and that anyone gets STD. In my opinion, this is a gross violation of medical and personal privacy. Issue 4, will immediately investigate. Will is a directive. There is no choice. The Sheboygan County Health Officer is going to be one very busy person. Of course, this will require the hiring of additional personnel to conduct investigations, issue tickets, close businesses, and generally stick their noses into citizens' personal lives and businesses. This government bill will require additional funding that will be required to feed this governmental overreach and bloat. Issue 5, all circumstances. Does that include contact tracing? Probably. Now, easily done in stealth mode through your cell phone. This is a huge privacy violation, not limited to just COVID tracking. Is this ordinance poorly written or purposely written to be vague and open to interpretation? Put it in the hands of the wrong persons, and they are here with us tonight. It can be a dangerous tool to persecute and prosecute citizens. Sheboygan County has had a low incidence of COVID. A minimum of 4 of the 8 deaths were terminal patients. Our hospitals and clinics were not overrun, and they were not unable to cope. State and national numbers of deaths, cases, and testing results are at best inaccurate. This ordinance is unnecessary. It is purposely broadly and vaguely written. Why? It is on a fast track. Why? I suggest you ask yourself those questions. This ordinance is an unnecessary solution to a problem that does not warrant this drastic and overreaching policy that will violate privacy, the right to freely associate, and the right to earn a living. I stand before you on behalf of my beautiful family, my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. There is no reason to propose and accept this ordinance. I ask all of you to please vote no.
Sure.
That's all I have.